boy, skipping a week in between, and this week is it's almost more of a history lesson. Anybody that loves history probably would love this chapter. A lot of history here. So we're in Daniel chapter 11. If you don't remember, and this is incredibly detailed, most of which has already happened, and it's pretty well laid out. I mean, verse by verse, talking about uh, this Persian Empire. I mean, from almost from start to finish, the Greeks, and I mean the Greek Empire mostly, and it's very detailed, and so detailed that a lot of folks don't even want to admit that this was written beforehand, because it is so detailed that even some folks who'd rather disprove it, the only thing they can really say is, we think this had to have been written after, because it is so detailed. So remember last time we were in chapter 10, and the angel came to Daniel and told him that he had brought this message. He had basically a fight with the prince of Persia, a demon from over that area, and Michael had to come help him. This was a prophecy that took a minute to get to Daniel, and there was some fighting going on getting there. So it was a very interesting chapter 10. And this is basically the message. This is the prophecy that the angel brings to Daniel. So verse 1 says, "Also I," and this is the angel speaking, not Daniel, "I in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I stood to confirm and strengthen him." So remember, this happened the third year of Darius is when this happened, but the angel goes back and says at the very beginning, I think probably what he's saying is that when Babylon fell and Darius took over, I was part of that. God knew that was going to happen. God prophesied to you that was going to happen. He told you that it would be the Babylonian Empire would fall and the Persian Empire would take over. You remember, we've already been through that in the Greeks and in the Romans. And this is God reminding Daniel that I told you that was going to happen, and even I, the angel says, strengthened Darius and put him in that position to reign from the very beginning. Okay, and so even I stood and confirmed him and strengthened him, just as the Lord said would happen. And so what we can take out of that, and a couple of things we really need to take out of this, is that God is absolutely in control. He's got a plan. He has angels that are doing his bidding and taking care of business. And when he says something's going to happen, it's going to happen. He said all these things are going to happen. They all happen. And we're going to run them down basically verse by verse, person by person through this entire kingdom. So verse 2. And now I will show you the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. There's going to be 3 more kings, and a 4th that shall be richer than they all. And so Darius, now this is in the reign of Darius. He says there are going to be 3 kings. We know from history that these were Cambyses, Pseudo-Smyrtus, and Darius Hystaspes. And then this 4th king that was richer than them all is the famous Ahasuerus Xerxes I. And so he is a famous king. He was very rich, and he was the one who got down to the Mediterranean and really harassed Greece, and basically got Alexander the Great stirred up, and kind of stirred that bear. And he was the one that went and harassed Greece, and that's what it says, and stir up all against the realm of Greece. So this is Xerxes the First, and we know from history that he did exactly that. He stirred them up, and got them upset. And so right after that, then it says in verse 3, and a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And this is Alexander the Great, who, when he comes into, starts his campaign, he is motivated because he was mad. He was mad at Xerxes, and he did not stop his campaign, even though they didn't want to fight anymore or whatever. He wiped them out, took them over. And so that mighty king, Alexander the Great, stood up, had great dominion. We've already talked about some of this, but this is very, very detailed. Remember, we're looking back at it, but for Daniel, this hadn't happened yet. This is still during Darius, the first king of Persia. And so when he shall stand up, I'm talking about Alexander the Great, his kingdom shall be broken. And once he moved through so fast, and he took over so much land so fast, and at a very young age he was broken. He died, and it says and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, and not to his posterity. So when he died, the land that he had taken for Greece was divided among four of his generals, not his posterity, not his kids. They didn't take over. But it was, if I can remember, it was Cassander, Lysimachus, it was Ptolemy, and Seleucus. And so the rest of this, they don't talk much about Cassander or Lysimachus. But Ptolemy and the Seleucus Empire, Ptolemy would have been the king, as we go through this, that's the king of the south, and the Seleucid Empire is the kings of the north, and that is like Syria and Egypt. And guess who's right in the middle? Israel. And so these two kings fight each other for years and years and years. And where do they fight? They fight right in Israel. They come together and they fight on Israel land. If you can imagine, a few hundred years of fight and battle after battle after battle on your property. I mean, a lot of destruction, right? So you wonder why that God chooses to talk about this prophecy about these particular nations. It's because of Israel. He's wanting to talk about the peoples, the groups, the fights, the battles that are going to be that have Israel at the center of it. They affect Israel greatly, and for years they do. And so these four take over, and not according to his dominion which he ruled. They don't do it like he did, and for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others besides. So the Greek Empire is not just these four. There are some others that take some of it, but mostly it's these four, and their descendants are ruling these four sides of what was the Grecian Empire. Okay, now verse 5. And the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion, and his dominion shall be great. So this, the king of the south, of course, that's Ptolemy. That's Egypt, basically. He starts out being strong and has great dominion. He's the one that has control over Israel at first, and then he is going to be set against the king of the north, which is Seleucus. So he shall be strong and have dominion, and his dominion shall be great. In the end of years, they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. So this Antiochus the second, remember the little horn is Antiochus the fourth. So we're before Antiochus the fourth. Remember, and we're going to get there, but Antiochus the fourth is the one who sets up the statue of Zeus and slaughters the pig on the altar and is just that vile leader. But this is before that. This is one of his foregoers. He has a daughter named Berenice, and she gets married to Antiochus II. And in the end of years they shall join themselves together, for the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up. And they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengthened her in these times. And so the story here in history is this Berenice woman married Antiochus II, but his first wife, Laodice, somehow gets the upper hand and murders Berenice, Antiochus II, and their child. And so what happens is they're not strengthened. She doesn't maintain power. She doesn't have strength in her arm. She's killed, and her husband. But out of a branch of her roots, in verse 7, shall one stand up in his estate. So her brother, Ptolemy the third. So you see, we're getting Ptolemy the first, Ptolemy the second, Ptolemy the third. These names get they get confusing after a while. This is just going to go back and forth, ruler after ruler. So her brother, Ptolemy the third, and this is like a soap opera. It's almost like I'm standing up here preaching a soap opera to y'all. It's not good. So Ptolemy the third takes over. Its root from her estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. And so history again. This Ptolemy the third wants revenge. He goes into the north. He defeats the north, and he ends up killing this woman, the first wife, Laodice. And shall also carry captives into Egypt, their gods with their princes, and with their precious vessels, and silver and of gold. And he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So this Ptolemy III, after he has killed Laodice, and he plunders the north and brings the gold back. And you'll see this back and forth, back and forth. And so verse 9. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom, and shall return into his own land. But his son shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return and be stirred up, even to his fortress. Okay, and so they again they're just fighting back and forth, back and forth. The king of the south shall be moved with choler. The south, remember, is the Ptolemaics, and he shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north, and he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. And so they both are strong. They're both powerful, but the south, the Ptolemaic, ends up winning this one. So this is by this time, this is remember, it's his son. So this is Ptolemy the fourth, and he defeats Antiochus the third. Now, Antiochus the third hangs on for a while. He's not killed, and it says, and when he had taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. And so he defeated them, and he killed tens of thousands. And it's, again, that's a historic thing that we know it happened. And verse 13, for the king of the north shall return, and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. And in those times there shall many stand up against the king of the south. Also the robbers of thy people shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they fall. And so the Antiochus III gets together his armies again. Remember, he was defeated. He gets everything back together. He goes to fight again. This time he's got what the Bible calls robbers. They're rebels. Jewish rebels take the side of Antiochus III and strengthen him. And yet, remember, this is all about Israel. I mean, anything about Israel, the Bible's going to talk about. And so they took Antiochus the third's side, but they got whipped. And so that didn't work out for them. It says, but they shall fall. I'm looking back. The Bible's looking forward. It's a little confusing. So the king of the north shall come and cast up a mount and take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, and neither shall there be any strength to withstand. And so now Antiochus the third goes and whips Ptolemy the fifth. I think is what it is. All right, and so, but he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him, and he shall stand in the glorious land, which by his hand shall be consumed. This is Antiochus the third. He's now strong. He's now taken Israel. Remember, Israel was in the Ptolemaic kingdom, and they fought in this land. Now it's the north, the king of the north, Antiochus III, and the Seleucid dynasty is now taken over the land. Said when he's talking about the glorious land, said he stands in the glorious land, and this is when he has taken over Israel. And by his hand shall be consumed. Again, not real. Nobody's real good to Israel through any of this, but some are certainly worse than others. So he shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither before him. And so Antiochus III has taken Israel. He ends up trying to make he's whipped Ptolemy the fifth, but he decides he wants to make a alliance with Ptolemy. And of course, that hasn't happened in quite some time. But he's got the upper hand. He sends his daughter, who is Cleopatra the first, to marry Ptolemy the fifth. Only problem is, she's not for him. But she shall not stand on his side, neither before him. And so what happens is he sends his daughter, thinking that he's going to control Ptolemy through his daughter, and it doesn't work out. She decides that she sides with her husband over her father. And this is Cleopatra the first. The famous Cleopatra is the seventh, I think, or something. So this is not her, if you're thinking that. So this is before the famous Cleopatra. Right. Okay, let's see, where were we? 18. Okay. All right, so that happened. After this, shall he turn his face into the islands in the Mediterranean, and he'll take many. He decided he wanted to go take several of the islands in the Mediterranean, and he does that. This is Antiochus III. But a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. Without his own reproach, he shall cause it to turn upon him. And so what we know then is that let's see, what's 19 say? Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. So he goes to take some of these islands in the Mediterranean, and a Roman commander, I think his name was Lucius, defeats him. And this is kind of the beginning of the Roman Empire getting started. They're starting to get powerful, and they're starting to have a presence, especially in the Mediterranean in their navy. And he ends up whipping Antiochus III and sending him packing. On his way, well, okay, so he sends him packing. He goes back home, and Antiochus III is killed while he's trying to loot a temple to Zeus, and the mobs of the people gang up on him and kill him. Okay, so then after him, in verse 20, then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes in the glorious kingdom, in the glory of the kingdom. And so this guy's name, if I wrote it down here, let's see. My mind's not what it used to be. This guy's name is Seleucus the Fourth, and he hires. This is kind of a famous story from history. He hires or appoints a tax collector named Heliodorus to take up taxes, and so they're taking up taxes because Rome has whipped them and Rome was making them pay taxes, right? So he decides to bring in this tax collector named Heliodorus. This tax collector poisons him and kills him. It says, but in a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. So again, all this is, do you see how just, and I went over a lot of verses fast, but this is very detailed, isn't it? Very detailed. God wanted his people to know exactly what was going to happen to the T. This guy wasn't king for just a little while, and he was poisoned by his own tax collector. Okay, so then we get into verse 21, and finally we kind of get past all that, sort of. We get to the guy that we have talked about. So, before we didn't talk about a lot of these smaller guys, right? It was the big picture stuff, and the Bible talked about Alexander the Great, and then he basically skipped to this guy Antiochus the Fourth. Antiochus the Third is dead. The Seleucid guy took over, but he didn't make it long, and now Antiochus the Fourth is going to end up taking over. And in his estate, in Seleucid estate, shall stand up a vile person. This is they're all, I think they all probably were pretty vile, but the Bible is talking about this guy particularly was vile toward the people of Israel. That's the big deal. That's the thing. He was particularly had evil intentions toward Israel. He's a vile person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. He wasn't the guy that was supposed to take over. The guy that was supposed to have taken over was being held in Rome. And so he comes in, basically a smooth-talking politician, I guess, and by flatteries, he ends up taking over the northern kingdom. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overthrown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, also the prince of the covenant. And so he defeats Ptolemy the Sixth. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall become strong with a small people. And he shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. And he shall scatter among them the prey and the spoil and the riches. Yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. Now, remember, Antiochus IV is a pre-runner, kind of a pre-picture of the Antichrist. And he has taken power through flatteries. He's now becoming strong because people are following him. Because why? Because he's given them part of the spoils. He's doing what his fathers didn't do. They didn't share. They by force. This guy is conniving. He is, hey, let me grease some palms. And he becomes strong politically because he's got a lot of backers, because he's passing out money. Well, you think about what the Bible says about the Antichrist. He's going to make everybody think everything's going good. He's going to make the world economy look better. He's going to make people think, "Ooh, I can make y'all richer. I can pad your pocketbooks." And folks are going to want to follow him. Folks want more money, don't they? More than anything else. It worked for him. It's going to end up working for a time. But notice it says even just a time, right? This is not going to last forever. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the kings of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Now this is going back to verse 22, when Antiochus IV is defeated Ptolemy the Sixth. Yea, and they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. Lots of folks got killed in those battles. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief. Okay, now both of these kings, this is Antiochus IV and this is Ptolemy the Sixth. When Antiochus whipped Ptolemy the Sixth, he lost office. Ptolemy the Seventh took over. Ptolemy the Sixth and Antiochus the Fourth got together and they tried to make a plan to get Ptolemy the Sixth back in office. It didn't work though. But they stirred up the power and they tried to make it work. But it didn't work. Both the kings, they had mischief in their hearts. They tried to make an alliance and take back over in the Ptolemaic reign, but it didn't work out. They shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, and yet the end shall be at the time appointed. So it didn't prosper. They tried to pull this scheme. It didn't work. Ptolemy the Seventh is still in power. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. And so on his way out of Egypt, after he got run out of Egypt, he did loot much of Egypt on his way out, and he was mad about losing out. And when he got to Israel, he took it out on them, and he killed lots of Jews. He looted the temple. He did what the Bible calls great exploits before he went to his land. So, and at the time appointed, he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. And so this time he tries to go by ship, and in verse 30, the ships of so this is Antiochus IV. He tries again to go to war, and this time he ends up going by ships, and the ships of Chittim, it says, this is Rome again. This is Gaius, shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. So what has happened now is he tried again. He was again turned away, this time by the Roman navy. Gaius. Again, we're looking at history. The Bible says this is going to happen. We know from history it happened exactly like that. Gaius turned him back, whipped him, sent him home. On his way back home, he goes, guess where? To Israel again. This guy does not take defeat well, and he wants to take it out on somebody, and he particularly hates the Jews. And he calls himself Epiphanes, which means illustrious one, but the Jews called him Epimanes, which means madman. He was not, he wasn't quite in his right mind, probably. Anyway, he hated the Jews. And so he was turned in indignation. This is when he actually stops in Israel. He ends up killing 80,000 Jews. He takes 40,000 prisoners, and he sells another 40,000 Jews into slavery. Evil man. He sets up an altar to Zeus. He sets up a statue of Zeus in the temple, and he slaughters a pig on the altar. He does everything he can. One of his great purposes is basically to do away with the Israelite religion. He wants to make these folks worship his gods and not worship the one true God. Israel is not helping anything along the way because a lot of them are not really worshiping the one true God. Even at this point, after they've come back into the land, remember they were captive in Persia and in Babylon. They've come back home, but it's not very long, and they begin again to worship these false gods and not serve Jehovah God. And so anyway, the ones who are being killed by the thousands because he's trying by force to make them not worship the one true God. And he desecrates the temple, and it says, and the Bible calls this the abomination of desolation. In verse 31, and arms shall stand in his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength. Now, some of the people who were on his side were Jewish. If you believe it or not, some of these folks were taking his side, probably out of fear, out of wanting to be on the side, because they, the truth is, when it comes time for folks to decide whether they're going to, they're going to worship God or they're going to take a bullet, most people are going to say they'd rather not worship God, right? They don't want to take the bullet. A lot of these folks did exactly that. And he pollutes the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. And I think I'm going to stop right there. I don't think I can get through the rest of it. I need a breath. And but this abomination, this desolation of the temple right here, we've talked about it a little bit already, and we're going to continue to talk about it going forward. But this is a pre-runner, a precursor. Some folks think this abomination of desolation is the abomination of desolation. It's already took place. But Jesus says, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet in the future. And so Jesus says there's going to be another abomination of desolation in the future. You can stand on that. He knows. He's the one that would know, right? And so, yes, this did happen. And yes, he was a vile person, but another thing to note is that the Antichrist sets up a statue of himself. He is the God in the temple that he wants everybody to worship. Even Antiochus IV set up a statue of Zeus in the temple, which is an abomination, but it's not himself. There are some differences here that says this happened, it was evil, but it's only a precursor to what is actually going to come with the Antichrist. I'm going to stop right there. I have no idea how many thousands of words I just said.